Hello again, everyone. So, I know I did say on my last video that I was going to confer with the comment section about, well, basically now this video. I decided, well, once I'd done some proper, H-bomber approved um, evidence gathering, that I decided, I will tackle this. Basically, I was going to tackle two videos, but I found I've come to not agree, but more just agree to disagree with the other video. This one, however, has too many issues for me. And I'd probably say even Metatron might find that, it's a video that he's maybe not proud of is too strong a word. Maybe just has a few issues nowadays. I mean, it was made 8 years ago, so I imagine, he probably either doesn't remember it or, you know, probably also finds it's a bit outdated. But yeah, the reason I want to tackle it is because, well, first to start off with is that I'm a big fan of Metatron and have been basically checking on that video for a good more than 8 years now. And I'd also say that, he's definitely someone that I still look up to in terms of information, whether in regards to Roman Empire, the Japanese samurai and their armors, and even, his take on, new movies or TV shows that handle Japanese or Roman Empire or even ancient empires. He always is definitely a trustworthy source, in my opinion. You know, so it definitely strikes me as a bit weird. Again, try to be nice. It's not weird. It's a bit, perhaps a bit misguided with a lot of his information. It definitely feels like he came into this too green, too fresh, And look, I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm not someone that's like, oh, you can't make a video on this thing that you've just gotten into, because I've been exactly where he is, and I say, make your videos, do it, get out there, you know, chat to the community, so. Don't look at this as just hate for the sake of hate because, I know more than him or I claim to know more than him. Absolutely not. No. That being said, it's just, some information that's a bit lacking in it. It's a good video. It is. There are a lot of points in it that I 100% agree with. No issues. It's just the issues I do have are a bit glaring. And today I'd like to, put it out there and just basically, again, debunk's a strong word, just basically clarify some of the information that he puts out there, so people get a better sense of what the Elder Scrolls world is and mainly about the Cyrodillic Empire. Because it's something I love, damn it, and I'm not going to have its name be misrepresented. So, I'm going to be reacting to, which I know is a controversial word, so I'm going to instead say, I'm going to be clarifying Metatron's video about the Roman Empire versus Cyrodillic Empire Skyrim historical comparison, which, for starters, there's a very obvious reason he put that last bit about Skyrim historical comparison. Basically, it's his take on the Cyrodillic Empire as it's represented in Skyrim. Or mainly from the Skyrim perspective, which doesn't entirely save a lot of my issues in terms of what he uses as the map. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get into the video.
So I would consider it as a similarity. Moving on to map control. Now, in the case of the Romans, at its peak, the Roman Empire stretched.
So, a little pause there. He's basically using the map of the Roman Empire that we all know and love. Shout out to my Romaboo boys out there. Basically from Britain to the Middle East. Basically them at their height. Also, it looks like he's even added in the little conquest of, Upper Thrace as well. So Rome at its very, very height. So even with borders that it then goes on to lose. So that's definitely a large Roman Empire to choose from, but that's his choice. The limitation is on the Cyrodillic Empire, not the Roman Empire. So it makes sense he would go for the strongest Roman Empire he could. Anyway, back to the video.
All the way from Britannia down to Egyptus and the Middle East. There are a lot of different countries and languages within this area. So we can say that the Roman Empire controlled a huge area which was called the known world, creating one of the largest empires ever made. Now, moving on to the Cyrodillic Empire, we know that the Cyrodiil Empire controls Cyrodiil and Skyrim. So, if we compare it to the Roman Empire, we have a lot less.
Okay, it's been a while since I watched this. So yeah, the map is Cyrodiil Empire after the Great War. So Skyrim, Cyrodiil, and for some reason he doesn't bring up High Rock. But fair enough. They're easily forgotten. So yeah, Hammerfall has pulled out. Apologies, Hammerfell pulled out because Cyrodiil, was basically forced not to back them when they tried to, successfully threw off the Audmeri yoke. So yeah, they then declared their independence even from the Empire. So again, yep, makes sense. This is the Skyrim historical comparison, so it has to be a lot of the lore from set around the time of Skyrim. So of course, absolutely no issues. That is the limitation you put on it, so makes sense. So yeah, as I pointed out, he didn't bring up High Rock or the Bretons, and I think he even mentioned
civilizations, countries, and cultures within this, because we only have basically two. But
only two. Forgetting the Bretons. But yeah, even just, a basic glimpse. Like you can even tell on the map, it mentions the Nibonese and the Colovian West. So yeah, it does not have a lot of civilizations, factions, or cultures. Which, if you're an Elder Scrolls fan, makes no sense. Because the Bretons are known for their political disunity. You got Wayrest, Daggerfall, but then when you look into the lore, there are tons of noble houses and the famous Breton saying of wherever there's a hill, you can crown a king. So, yeah. But say you ignored the Bretons in High Rock. Again, you would also be missing out the orcs. Yeah, Orsimer, which again isn't on the map, but they are known for being staunch Imperial supporters. Is that the right word? They're basically always recruited because the Imperials are known for not hating them. So they often find they get jobs easily with the Empire. And then, of course, Skyrim, which, I mean, he has played the game. It's the whole reason he pointed out. It's the whole reason he's chosen the setting to be the Skyrim game. So, I mean, we all know what's happening in Skyrim. We know also the Reach. But again, makes sense. The Reachmen aren't going to exactly enroll themselves in the thousands with the Empire, so ignore that. But I guess that's kind of my point. He doesn't say this all has to be the people that support the Empire. These are all people that are in the Empire, according to the map he's chosen and the words he's used. The civilizations within the Empire. That's the Reach, but he picked them. They're in your map, But sure, we can ignore them as well. So if we're ignoring, the Bretons and the Nords and Skyrim as a whole, and the Orcs, we're left with nothing else, right? Oh, we are left with the Imperials, where you've got the Colovians, the Nibonese, and the Heartlands, which are three distinct cultures. They haven't just disappeared all of a sudden. They're just not talked about a lot, but you can still read books, and it is a known fact about them that there are Colovians, Nibonese. The Heartlands don't get mentioned a lot, so fair enough if me adding them feels a bit too extreme, but they are still regularly brought up as a culture, the sort of the mix between the two that sort of just control the Heartlands, as is their name. But the Colovians are known for their distinct Nordic type culture, and the Nibonese are known for their distinct elven type culture. But basically, they are distinct. But, say you wanted to be like, oh, is there any? Yes, there is a distinct, broad range, and they all are very distinct from one another, which is the whole point of distinct cultures. So to say it's just Skyrim and Cyrodiil when there's not much else is disingenuous.
What really makes the difference is the percentage of world map control, because we have to consider that this is the whole world. So this is probably what it would look.
Alright, so his next point is about map size. Is the Empire controlling a lot of territory compared to what the Romans would have? And my 2 cents on this are very we all have our own interpretations of what it would look like, and he believes that there is a distinct size difference between the two. His point basically ends with that the Roman Empire controlled less land than the Cyrodillic Empire, which I can neither agree nor disagree, so I'm instead just going to agree because I like the guy. No, it's basically just because I've got no evidence and no interest in wanting to disprove his point, so yeah, his point stands. I find no reason to disagree with it. Yeah, let's move on to his next topic about ranks.
Of key battles during the war. Now, these ranks are the auxiliary or private, the quaestor or sergeant, the prefect or lieutenant, the tribune or captain, and the legate or commander. Now, these terminology is also present in the Roman Empire, but with different meanings.
So, yeah, as he was saying, he's now going to go on to prove that, all of these ranks and what they stand for are completely different from the real Roman Empire. Now, my immediate point, and this is the main reason that I wanted to do this video, and I've wanted to do it for like 8 years now, because I watched this video when it first came out, was just that he now goes on to argue that auxiliary isn't going to work because it means something different in the Roman Empire. But my immediate thought was that it does still work because they're recruiting from outside of Cyrodiil. So, of course, they're not going to look at someone from Skyrim or from High Rock as the same as someone from this Cyrodiil proper. So, of course, it would be an auxiliary. Why would they immediately move on to a higher rank rather than someone who is from Cyrodiil? You know? Of course, you could also argue, well, I can play as the same race as Imperial and still get the auxiliary rank. Why is that? And I would just look at that like, you're still being recruited from outside the Empire. Well, I keep saying the Empire. Outside of Cyrodiil proper. So, of course, you're still being recruited as an auxiliary. Basically, just because you're not from Cyrodiil. Well, you're not being recruited from Cyrodiil, which would make more sense. Let's see what is his point.
There is also, but before talking about this, I'd like to say that in Skyrim there is also another rank that cannot be earned by the Dragonborn, and that is the rank of the General, which is basically the commanding officer of a small Imperial army or even an entire legion who reports directly to the Emperor. So, comparing these ranks to the actual Roman ones, we have to say that, for example, the quaestor was a government rank in real Roman times. It had nothing to do with the war. The tribunes can be both government or military. The auxiliaries in Roman times were basically foreign soldiers. They were not Roman citizens. They were not part of the...
So yeah, like I was saying, he's put it down as mercenary, which makes sense. But it also kind of, perhaps he could have made more of a mention about mercenary. His interpretation of mercenary. Because mercenary, to me, sounds like someone that isn't part of your army proper. They're sort of like hired help, But that's just more a modern interpretation of mercenary. Is his interpretation of mercenary more from a modern perspective or from the past type of perspective? But as he points out, with his version of auxiliary, someone who wasn't part of the empire and is coming from outside of it, would make sense. I mean, we've seen Skyrim in its Civil War state, so of course, it's fighting for its independence. Of course, the Empire is going to look at people coming into its army with a little suspicion. You know, they're hiring inside this war zone. Why would they just immediately give these new recruits this higher rank? You know, compared to someone that they have brought in from Cyrodiil or even from High Rock. Who's to say this is their hiring process in High Rock? You know, we're just getting the Skyrim perspective here, which is in the middle of a war zone, a civil war. You know, it's brother fighting brother, you know, that sort of stuff. So I say it comes down to perspective again, which is getting harder and harder to say. But yeah, it's just sort of, you can look at it from one angle and say, absolutely, you know, these are poorly thought through. You know, they should have, you know, given it a better name. You know, they probably should just call them recruits and just left it at that. And, you know, you don't have to use the ancient Roman auxiliary in it, you know, but, you know, you can also look at it the way I did and just be like, I think they're using it the exact way that you think auxiliary means. You know, you're this unknown force who has to prove himself, sort of thing. It's the whole reason why they send you to go clear those forts. You know, oh, well done. Here, have this rank random person. You know, prove yourself, and then you can properly join the Empire. You know, as for the other points about Quaestor, Prefect, Tribune, Legate, and the unattainable General, I got no real issue with it. You know, I guess sort of the fact of, you know, I don't want to quote Ridley Scott here and be like, you know, how do you know? You weren't there. You weren't born in ancient Rome. How can you say what is and isn't? That was a terrible Ridley Scott impression. I genuinely can't even remember what he sounds like. That was just more of a horrible Beatles impression. But yeah, Quaestor as government rather than as military, Prefect, Tribune. The Tribune one's a bit weird. Why do you acknowledge that it could be governed or military? It could be both. How's their correction? He
The
hasn't
Legion,
finished
and they basically
Prefect
served
Legate.
alongside the Legion and bolstered its forces. So traditionally, for example, the cavalry of the Legion was mostly auxiliary, whereas in Skyrim, an auxiliary is just, as you know, the first rank of the legions.
So yeah, I probably should have let him finish. Apologies, Metatron. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird because he kind of makes points why it does make sense for Skyrim. You know, he mentions it was used to bolster the legions, which is exactly what they're doing. You know, they're bolstering their forces that are now in Skyrim with the locals, you know, the local natives. So, of course, the local natives' first rank would be auxiliary. The whole idea of mainly focusing on cavalry is also a bit weird. I mean, we all know the Germanic cavalry that Caesar used when he was in Gaul, so of course there's that. Ah, oh, dang it, I think I just made a mistake. I think it's probably Gaulish cavalry. But it was definitely auxiliary cavalry that Caesar used, because the Romans weren't well known for their cavalry, so it makes sense they used the locals. But I feel like they also used other types of auxiliary, you know. Ooh, that kind of goes against my point, though, the whole idea of other types of auxiliary. But, like, the whole idea of them was that you then worked your way up to the proper legions, and then you earned your Roman citizenship, you know. course, that doesn't really work in the whole Skyrim setting. You know, the Nords are meant to be part of the Empire, but they're also breaking apart, so it's also a good back and flow, you know? It's sort of, we understand you're part of our empire. Do you mind proving it, you know, by helping us put down this rebellion that your people started? You know? I know there's people that are gonna be like, oh, but like, I can be this race when this race. It's like, the point still stands. You have to prove you do support the empire in order to, you know, get a better rank. Plus, it's not like it's even hard. So I think that's kind of, both those points are kind of just, that's how Bethesda made the game kind of thing, you know. Why can I join the auxiliary if I'm an Imperial? That's how Bethesda made the game. How come it's so easy to rise up the rank anyway? That's how Bethesda makes the game, you know, so, yeah.
Legate was equivalent to a modern-day general, but for the Cyrodillic legate reports to a general. So this actually makes a completely different rank. It is probably closer to a colonel, the Cyrodillic legate, than to an actual Roman legate. Another similarity between the two.
Just pause it there a little bit. Yeah, I got no real issues with his other interpretation of the ranks. You know, other than my horrible Ridley Scott impression of, you weren't there. But yeah, no real issue. Good points all round. You know, the guy obviously would have had to do his own research on, you know, the Roman Empire to know what the different ranks stood for. And I've got nothing to back me up to say otherwise. So, yep, I just fully, completely believe that his view on the Roman ranks is 100% the truth, and have nothing to disprove that, which is not the point of this video. It's more to disprove his points on the Cyrodillic Empire. His next point is then on about camps and how they're shown in Skyrim the game. Of course, again, it's his chosen limitation of the Cyrodillic Empire is their representation in Skyrim. So, my views on it are, they're sort of meant to be in this ragtag type situation. The Empire doesn't want to throw too much resources into this, you know, backwater rebellion. You know, they understand it is an important threat, but they don't want to put too much resources into crushing it wholeheartedly because, one, they're hoping that, you know, minimal resources, but, you know, good tactics will win the day. And two, they're very close to being in a second Great War, and the idea of moving more troops, more resources off of the borders will be seen as a massive weakness and will be exploited, you know. They don't know when that second Great War is starting, and they don't want it to be when they're moving their troops about. So, you know, of course, they're not building massive Roman fortifications. You know, I mean, we've seen other interpretations of, you know, Cyrodillic's forts when they were at their height and there wasn't, you know, this beleaguered empire that's coming away from a great war that nearly destroyed them. You know, like we've seen the forts in Morrowind, we've seen the forts in Oblivion. So, of course, we can imagine the Empire knows how to build good forts. I'd say probably even better than a lot of Roman forts, because they made theirs, the Cyrodillics made theirs out of stone. You know, they weren't building some ramshackle wooden fort. You know, they were building that thing there, you know, which the Romans also did once they, you know, established more ground. But the clip he goes on to show, the clip, the photo.
Is the presence of camps. Now, Imperial camps in Skyrim are normally located in each of Skyrim's holds, with the exception of Halfingr. Now, these serve as outposts post for the Legion, and basically they are instrumental in the ongoing civil war. They're normally commanded by a legate, who can be found in his tent, and also have an imperial quartermaster working at a fort, who is also a merchant. In these camps we have tents, but no fortification nor walls.
So yeah, no fortification or walls, and again, they're fighting against a lot more of a guerrilla force. You know, it wasn't that at the start, but then they beat them and they managed to capture Ulfric. So, you know, he's now gone a tad bit underground. Well, underground. He's in a massive city, so not really underground, but the Empire doesn't really want to spend too much resources there. So the idea of, you know, they're basically following the campaigns of Caesar to the letter makes no sense for what they're trying to accomplish here. This isn't Rome, you know, the Roman Republic that's just, you know, still in its early stages and is like, yeah, let's let these consuls lead massive armies. You know, this is just an empire that's led basically to a draw. You know, they came away from that war given as good as they got, but they got it good. And now they're just trying to keep hold of Skyrim. You know, and it's just. I think it's also the fact that, you know, this is, in their eyes, also an imperial province, or one they want to keep hold of. So, of course, they don't want to just start building massive forts. You know, they want to crush this and then head right back down south. You know, this is friendly territory, you know, or it can be again. So long as we don't start looking like we're invaders that are just building all of these basically signs to the locals that we are invading you. You know, you're no longer us anymore. You know, I might be looking too far into it, but just the idea that they also go on to reuse some of the old Skyrim forts rather than building new ones, I think also really helps, you know? Rather than building new stuff, you've already got wooden forts there. Why not just use that? You know? A new base of operations, just use Solitude. That's where the king was, so why have a new base of operations? You know, it's sort of just let's work with the locals to put down this local rebellion, if that makes sense. So yeah, he basically just goes on to talk about Roman forts and how different they are. And then his next point is about weapons. And then it's about armor. So yeah, I think that was basically just like the main one. The other points are just, you know, the Imperial sword in Skyrim doesn't look like a gladius sort of thing, and has a weird design towards the end of the sword, which is a fair point. I don't disagree with that. Basically, it just gets into points that I don't disagree with. You know, like his point about
The two
helmets.
helmets I would rather prefer the Imperial one. Another thing though is that the Legionnaires in Skyrim are more protected because they have protection for their arms, whereas the normal Roman Legionnaire wouldn't, and they have protection for their legs. They have actual greaves. Most Roman Legionnaires didn't have that, only Centurions did. I have to say that it would be very nice to see both in game in order to compare them. But
Yeah, like the rest of his points, I completely agree with, and I find a lot of it really informative. You know, also a lot of stuff that you wouldn't really think of. You know, if all you've ever grown up with is Hollywood's interpretation of, you know, Roman armor, Oh, they don't have protection for their arms and legs. That's kind of dumb. Why wouldn't they have that? They didn't. They didn't because it was a waste of time crafting it. You're talking about Roman legions that were well above 1,000 men. They're not wasting material for all those men just to protect their arms and legs. No. Focus on the body, the main areas that could, get them instantly killed, and that's it. His point about the helmet, I also agree with, the whole protection for the cheeks, the Skyrim one it's weird. Why does it just have this sort of static, only protecting like that, whereas the Roman ones, the curved inwards, well, you make the argument, well, if you're slashing across the face anyway, it still does the same protection, which, yeah, but if you're slashing to the side, coming from this angle, there's not much if your face twists like that, all of a sudden you're dead, So yeah, Metatron's video, it's still a good video, even though it's 8 years old now, and he probably has some different views on some of his points, but it's still a good video. I still view it as a good sign, he's still a good YouTuber, even to this day, he still makes great videos and makes great points, even shows, even 8 years ago, he was still making great videos and making great points. So again, hope that clarifies. I'm not hating on the guy or wanting to hate on like newcomers to the Elder Scrolls world. It's just some points that he made that I disagreed with, and I just wanted to clarify it, or at least offer a different point of view for a lot of it, so people can make their own opinions. Anyway, it's the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed, Feel free to leave a comment if you agree, disagree, feel like I made points that were dumb, or dare I say, want to say, want to agree with me, Feel free to throw your opinion in the comments section, And also just to show that I have no ill will to Metatron. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.